In June of 1983, a hard-boiled Army intelligence officer named Wayne McDonnell was summoned to a secure room in Langley, Virginia. The Cold War was at its peak. The United States and the Soviet Union were engaged in a silent, desperate race for cognitive supremacy. Reports had reached the CIA that Soviet scientists were researching psychokinesis, telepathy, and astral projection. They believed that the human mind could be trained to bypass physical limitations, access classified archives remotely, and even manipulate probability grids, what we commonly call luck. McDonnell was not a mystic. He was a mechanical engineer, a logician, and a skeptical investigator. He dealt in hard facts, physics, and empirical evidence. When his superiors ordered him to investigate a program called the Gateway Experience at the Monroe Institute in Virginia, McDonnell went in expecting to expose it as a psychological scam designed to drain government funds. The Monroe Institute was run by Robert Monroe, a former radio executive who had spent decades researching the effects of sound frequencies on human consciousness. Monroe claimed that by playing specific audio signals into a subject's ears, he could induce perfect synchronization between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, allowing the subconscious mind to separate from the physical world. McDonnell checked in, hooked himself up to the EEG monitors, and put on the heavy headphones. He was determined to keep his analytical mind fully awake, tracking the physical changes in his brain activity. But the moment the frequencies started playing, his rational defense system began to crumble. Instead of writing a report exposing a scam, McDonnell spent the next few months compiling a 29-page memorandum that would remain classified under Project Center Lane until 2003. In it, he mathematically proved that the Gateway Experience worked. But when McDonnell tried to use the technique himself to force a breakthrough in his own focus and cognitive abilities, the experiment backfired. He discovered that the harder he tried to control the process, the further he slipped away from the results. He had stumbled upon a fundamental biological paradox, a neurological glitch that sits inside every human brain, keeping us locked in stress and financial survival. To understand why McDonnell's experiment backfired, we have to look at the physics of the brain as detailed in the declassified CIA report. McDonnell did not use mystical terminology. He explained the brain's behavior using wave mechanics, electromagnetism, and quantum biology. The human brain is split into two hemispheres. The left hemisphere is your logical sensor. It handles language, math, worry, and linear time. It is the part of your brain that focuses on your bank account balance, worries about next month's bills, and tells you to work harder, sleep less, and push through exhaustion. The right hemisphere is creative, intuitive, nonlinear, and controls what modern psychologists call the flow state, the state where elite performers make decisions instantly, without hesitation. Under normal conditions, these two halves are in constant conflict. When you sit down to plan a business, study, or make a critical financial decision, your left brain dominates. It fires at a high-frequency beta wave, ranging between 12 and 30 Hz. This beta state is designed for immediate survival. It keeps you alert, but it also spikes your cortisol and locks you in a state of cognitive tunnel vision. Monroe's breakthrough was a technology called Hemi, short for hemispheric synchronization. It used binaural beats to play slightly different frequencies in each ear. For example, if you play 100 Hz in the left ear and 104 Hz in the right, the brain cannot process these two distinct sounds separately. Instead, it creates a third, internal frequency of 4 Hz, the difference between the two. This internal frequency coaxes the left and right hemispheres into a state of perfect resonance. They start firing in unison. As the electrical signals align, the brain's activity drops out of the high-stress beta state and sinks into the deep, calm rhythm of the theta frequency, 4 to 8 Hz. McDonnell mapped this synchronization on EEG machines. He realized that when the brain hemispheres are synchronized, the mind becomes a highly efficient transmitter. The analytical left brain sensor is bypassed, and the subconscious right brain is unlocked. The CIA believed this was the key to accessing remote information. But when McDonnell attempted to utilize this state to solve complex military problems, he hit a solid wall. The harder he pushed his logical mind to grab the answers, the more the hemisync broke down. His left brain kept waking up, firing back into beta waves, and ruining the synchronization. In Section 12 of the declassified report, McDonnell explains why his attempt to force the brainwave state failed. He introduced a concept that was radical in 1983, but is now supported by modern quantum physics, the holographic nature of reality. McDonnell argued that the physical universe is not made of solid matter. Instead, it is a complex hologram generated by intersecting energy grids. Your brain, he wrote, is a holographic translation system. It takes the infinite frequencies of the universe and projects them as a solid, 3D reality containing tables, chairs, and bank accounts. Under normal beta waves, your brain projects a reality dominated by scarcity. Because your logical brain is constantly scanning for threats and focusing on limitations, it interprets the quantum field as a series of obstacles. You see bad luck, market crashes, and blocked opportunities. However, when the brain hemispheres are synchronized under theta waves, the mind's frequency aligns with the universal hologram. The brain is no longer struggling against its environment, it is projecting from a state of coherence. Think of it like a radio. If you want to listen to a specific station, you don't try to force the music out of the speakers by screaming at them. You simply tune the dial to the correct frequency, and the signal flows in effortlessly. The music was always there, you just had to align your receiver. The theta wave is the tuning dial of the human brain. It is the frequency of deep relaxation, healing, and what mystics call manifestation. In this state, your subconscious mind is not blocked by your analytical worries. It can spot connections, opportunities, and pathways that your logical mind is completely blind to. But why is it so difficult for the average adult to access this frequency? Why do we spend our lives stuck in the high-stress beta state, constantly struggling to get ahead? The CIA discovered that the roadblock is not spiritual. It is physical, and it is caused by a tiny organ in the center of your brain. Deep within your temporal lobe sits a small, seahorse-shaped structure called the hippocampus. In the CIA documents, this is referred to as the gateway to the subconscious. The hippocampus acts as the traffic controller for your memory, focus, and brainwave output. When you are a child, your hippocampus is highly active, and your brain naturally operates in theta waves. This is why children learn languages instantly, have vivid imaginations, and live without worry. But as we grow older, we are introduced to stress. We worry about money, jobs, expectations, and survival. When you feel financial pressure, your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Under modern lifestyles, this release is not temporary, it is chronic. And neuroscientists have recently discovered something alarming: chronic cortisol exposure literally shrinks the hippocampus. When your hippocampus shrinks, it suffers a physical glitch. It can no longer generate theta waves. Your brain is forced to stay locked in the high-stress beta state. Your left brain hemisphere runs on overdrive, constantly analyzing, worrying, and trying to force solutions. This is why hustling often backfires. When you decide to work harder, sleep less, and push your body to the limit to make more money, you are increasing your cortisol levels. This shrinks your hippocampus,